Morning, Miss Amanda. Thank you for accepting this interview. It won't take like more than 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay.
Can we start?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. First question: how can you differentiate language from a dialect?
Well, I would say that language is a more general idea of communication, as in English is a language, and there are certain ways you can pronounce certain words or certain vocabulary that can be different according to geographical locations. So those would be the dialects, like more unique ways depending on a certain group of people. So it's like dialects are inside a language. I would say it that way.
That was perfect. The second one: how can you define morphology?
Well, morphology is like a way, well, basically it studies the way words can be, the structure of words. For example, you have the word jump, and to that word you can add an ing form, and it's not like you completely change the meaning of the word, but it gives it another structure and it's used in a different way.
Wow, thank you. Continuing, how can you define syntax?
Well, syntax comes from, the word sense. So it pretty much tells us that when you make a sentence, you can put words together, but it's not only about put them randomly, they have to make sense. So that's the syntax. The syntax looks forward to create ideas that have an organized meaning.
Thank you. Well, what is the most common way in which dialects of a language vary?
Well, they there are many ways they can like vary. It can be pronunciation, I think. I actually think that that's the one that um, has more impact, because you see in the United States, certain people that live at north have a different way to pronounce things than people who live at south. For example, at north people can say you all, as two separate words, but in the south part of the country, you find people who say y'all, like they put both words together, and that's
Okay.
expression. So yeah, I would say pronunciation.
Okay, and can you provide an example of dialect variation based on the opinion you just choose?
Well, I pretty much told you one. You can find people that up north from the United States pronounce the word you all, and then you find the you all. You also found, let's say, well, going a little bit like farther distance, you find Americans and you find British people. Americans have uh, a different way to pronounce words. Let's say one of my favorite movies is Pride and Prejudice, and the principal character's name is Mr. Darcy. That's how you would pronounce it in American language. And then you find the British, and which is the actual dialect that it's the movie it's been made, and the principal character then it's Mr. Darcy.
Okay.
It sounds totally different.
Oh, yeah, of course. Well, what is the most common reason for dialects to vary? We have three choices.
Okay.
The letter A, geographical location; B, economic status; and C, educational status.
Well, I would say that the most common one would be geographical, but I actually like a lot the idea of the economical status, because when you see geographical, as we have already made so many examples of it, but then you find that people with a higher, income level, learn maybe, and that goes along with the educational status, because they learn more formal ways to express themselves.
Okay, yeah, of
And
course.
then you
I
find
agree.
people with a lower income who maybe didn't have access to the same level of education, and they therefore have a different dialect, and of course less formal, very informal, and sometimes not grammatically correct.
Yeah, I agree totally with you. So, Can you provide an example of a dialect variation based on the opinion you just chose?
Well, I think that again, quoting TV and movies, when you see the soap operas, especially the Mexicans,
Yeah.
when you find this lady who she was poor and then she had all these crazy words, very informal ways of expressing, and then when they transform the girl, turns out she has different ways of expressing herself. In English, it's a little hard to give an example, but maybe in Spanish, I can kind of give you one. Let's say, when you say hi to your grandma in Spanish, you can say like in a very formal way, "Hola abuela," and then you have the very informal way to say it, "Hola vieja." So
Okay.
it's like
Yeah,
goes
it's
there.
kind of fun. Um, Taking into account English language, can you tell an existing difference in regard to pronunciation, spelling, and sentence formation between British and American English?
Well, we were talking about that. In pronunciation, it's basically, I think, the easiest one you could say. We said Mr. Darcy and Mr. Darcy. You have maybe um, even the way they say hello. In Americans, you say hello or hi, and then there's British hello. They have more like um, eloquent, or they just move their mouth in a very different way. So yeah.
Like they say, thank you.
Yeah, and it's a total different sound. Yeah.
Of course.
You said
Pronunciation,
pronunciation.
spelling, or sentence
Well, in
formation.
spelling, I found it's kind of funny. Center in American, you spell it, sorry, as in Center. That's correct. But one time I had this argument with this teacher because she spelled it with as in Centre, and I thought it was wrong, and I told her, that's misspelled. And well, it turns out that she learned English with a British school, so that's the way they actually spell center. It's like centra, and that also changes the pronunciation of the word because it changes the spelling, of course. And then you have
Sentence formation.
well, maybe in sentence formation that's a little bit of a tougher one. You can say when it comes towards like yet or just, uh, British tend to add, the apostrophe s after these kind of words, like uh, she just came, or he, let's say, he just did his homework. He just did his homework. It's kind of weird. I really have a hard time explaining that, but I'm sure that there's kind of a difference there with those words, especially.
Yeah, and taking into account Spanish language,
Okay.
can you tell an existing difference in regard to pronunciation, spelling, and sentence formation between coast and Sierra region speakers?
There's
think
a lot you can
yeah.
do with that, because you find the people at the Sierra region who tend to roll too much the R, or have that little singing after, like at the end of every sentence, and then you have the people at the coast who speak very fast, and because they speak so fast, they just tend to, not only skip some words but also to skip some letters, uh, well, maybe you can say with the word carro. And then you have the Sierra, people who can say like carro, it sounds kind of funny and I'm not really good at it. But with, as I tell you, like people in the Sierra, they do tend to overpronounce the R, but they also always pronounce the S. People at the coast region, they skip it so many times because of how fast they talk. So that's about it.
Talking about spelling, it will be a hard time to try to explain that, but maybe we can try on vocabulary.
Oh, vocabulary. Well, that's also you have a lot of different ways. People at the Sierra had a lot of influence from the Quechua language.
Yeah.
So let's say I've heard people who say instead of saying dad, papa, padre, they say taita.
Mhm.
So of course that's a whole different language,
Of
but
course.
I mean, once you put it on the regular situation where you're talking to someone in Spanish, because they do that, they talk in Spanish,
Yeah,
but they
of
use
course.
these words. So I would say that could be an example, or maybe mm, vocabulary. Like here at the coast, you can say oye tú, and then at the Sierra, oye ve. They add the ve as like as in you.
Yeah,
So maybe that.
And like a sentence formation.
Well, in sentence formation, um, you know, I think I would change my answer to the one with the be. I can change it there, because that's a different way of making your sentences,
Adding some words.
like adding some words at the end. So people at the coast sometimes
Miss words.
miss words, and then you have the other ones who add them. So
Yeah.
around there.
And last question. Is there any other dialect variation that you can talk about?
Well, I couldn't really give examples of it, but that's pretty much a pretty clear example of different dialects. The Chinese language. Chinese is the language, it's the general language, but then you have many dialects, and the two, I think, I'm not so sure if it's the most spoken ones would be Chinese and Mandarin and Cantonese.
Yeah.
They're both Chinese language, but they're two different dialects. So I would say that's a very good example. I couldn't give you quite an exact example of it. I'm not really good at Chinese, So
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to interview you, and
You're
have a
welcome.
nice day.
Thank you.